why is the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke very similar to one another? Theologians call the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke as Synoptic Gospel. I don't know if you have heard that term or not, but because of the stark similarity, the similarity is just very, very amazing in terms of the percentage of stories shared and then also the chronological order. It's so similar with between Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So that's why it's called the Synoptic Gospel. And John is like different. You can get that sense immediately, I think, if you read the Bible, you try to read the New Testament. And the question is why? Why not just one? Or because Matthew, Mark, and Luke is very similar, why not just use one story? And or else the other question is, why is it very similar? Yeah, that's also the question. And generally, to answer this question, theologians agree that the first gospel written is Gospel of Mark, and it's suspected that the Gospel of Mark was written after or maybe around the time where the church got persecution from Roman Empire. So all the church leaders are murdered one by one, including Peter. And Mark was the disciple of Peter, was believed to be disciple of Peter. And then realizing this situation, they realized the importance of writing it down, writing the gospel down, writing down the gospel. And then Mark record the story in a written form. Because traditionally, if you know, at least you should imagine at that time they don't read, they don't write, they only talk and listen. So it's actually there is no point at the time to record down everything if the apostles are still alive. But now they see, oh, their church leaders are one by one murdered by the Roman Empire, and they need the faithful testimony of the Jesus Christ's life and death. And that's why Mark recorded everything in a narrative form in his gospel. And then it was believed that the Gospel of Mark was distributed everywhere, and then Matthew and Luke read the Gospel of Mark. That's why the similarity can be very, very high. But Mark don't realize some important details that might be very important to the, for example, to the Jews, because Matthew served to the Jews. And then like the baptism of Jesus, if you notice, baptism of Jesus is very puzzling to the Jews, because it means John the Baptist is higher than Jesus, because John the Baptist baptized Jesus. So why should we believe in Jesus if John the Baptist is higher than Jesus? That's the main question in the Jewish group at that era. Then that's why if you read the Gospel of Matthew, the story is slightly different. Matthew changed a little bit that story by adding this narrative. This is not Matthew narrative made by Matthew. It's probably known at the time. It's just as Mark doesn't realize that it's important to jot it down in his gospel. That's why Matthew gives some explanation of that. If you read the Gospel of Matthew, and it's only in the Gospel of Matthew, by the way, there was a dialogue before the baptism between John the Baptist and Jesus. Then in that dialogue, it's very clear that John the Baptist doesn't think that he deserves to baptize Jesus, because Jesus is for sure Jesus was higher than John the Baptist. So, but Jesus insists John the Baptist to baptize him. And yeah, that's the part that Matthew record to explain to the Jews that, oh, actually that's because Jesus asked John the Baptist to baptize him. John the Baptist already acknowledged that he is actually lower than Jesus. So that's why the Gospel of Matthew and Mark are very similar, because Matthew actually read Mark and he turned it a little bit to explain to his reader in more detail some part that might be confusing, because Mark doesn't realize this issue, because the reader of Mark and the reader of Matthew different. And also the same thing that Luke did to the gospel with the gospel of Mark. And then yeah, it is believed also that Matthew and Luke didn't read one another, but Matthew read Mark, Luke read Mark. Yeah, this is my short explanation of the Synoptic Gospel. And if you have any question on the Bible, any questions, you can just comment below and I will make a video to answer your question. See you next time. Bye bye.